Heard the outgoing JSC CEO, Nikki Newton-King, this morning. She's promised that a memorandum handed over by the demonstrators will be used to determine how business can respond to some of the demands. The anti-femicide protesters, as you heard, says corporate South Africa is part of the problem by perpetuating pay inequalities between men and women. The movement wants a tax from the country's businesses to be used to tackle gender-based violence. Well, Business Leadership South Africa CEO Busisiwe Mavuso joins me now just on some of these issues. Busisiwe, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much, Devin.
So this demonstration follows a heartbreaking and dreadful week, and many would say it's much longer than that. And I suppose the first question would be, does the members of your broad body businesses support an anti-femicide drive or campaign like this one?
We absolutely support it, Devin. You would have seen probably last week on Business Day when WEF Africa started, right? Even before the demonstrations, we had an article on first page news to condemn the violence that was actually happening in the country, together with the, killing of women. That the demonstration at WEF Africa was about. But I think more importantly, you would know that Business Leadership South Africa has got a unit called Business Against Crime. And through this unit, we're actually working with the National Prosecuting Authority to find out how we can actually capacitate the state so that we can ensure that the rule of law in this country is restored. Because from where we're sitting as business, in terms of the interventions that we can do to try and assist the situation, it is precisely through capacitation, right? Ensuring that the state does what it needs to do. You also probably would have heard that we've asked for an engagement with Minister Pegicele to say that where are the gaps in your system? Why is the situation so rough? And are you in a position to contain it? If not, how do we as business come in and assist? But then it becomes tricky, Devin, because as soon as business comes in, forcefully like that to say would like to assist, then it's business capture, of the NPA or of the police or whatever the case is. But I think be that as it may, which is a separate issue, business is actually very worried about what's happening in the country, and it doesn't augur well for investment, and I think we have actually stood up to condemn it.
So you would disagree then with some of the sentiment we've seen this morning? One, that business and corporate South Africa largely ignores this very pressing societal issue. Some of the other accusations are that, look, the capitalist nature of business puts forward this inequality between men and women, which then filters back into society, and you see this violence coming out. And then they say, well, perhaps the good response from you guys in business could be a tax. You want to respond to those two issues there?
So I think we can definitely explore the issue of a tax, and I think this is what I've been trying to follow what is happening in Sandton this morning to find out exactly what are the articulations of those that are protesting, what are the demands, against business, because I think we have actually been very open as Business Leadership South Africa in particular to say that our focus is to ensure inclusive socio-economic growth and transformation. And when you have 52% of your population that is under siege, the way we as women are under siege, then obviously that doesn't augur well for inclusivity. So I think we'd like those more, frequent and intimate engagements with civil society to say, how can business meaningfully get involved? And I deliberately emphasize meaningfully, Devin, right? And I think it will be meaningful if we were to hear from them what it is that they think, they'd like to see business doing, because otherwise our interventions are going to be a hit and miss. So I think the issue of a tax is definitely something that would like to explore further as business and see to what extent we can actually assist the situation, as it were.
The other thing is that when you just look historically, whether it's in corporate offices or factory floors, the patriarchal structure of these places really hasn't changed much over the past few decades. Has business done enough to change that structure to make it less patriarchal?
No. Business hasn't done enough to change that structure. It is not a South African structure, it is not an African structure, it is a global structure, right? We still live in very much a patriarchal society, and I think the pay gap disparities, are the same, universally, the whole world over. It doesn't, however, say that it is correct that business should continue to perpetuate what it's perpetuating. So I think probably maybe this is where, in my view, from a political perspective, policies can probably maybe also also assist in terms of a deliberate focus, in terms of moving a particular section of the society towards a particular direction. Because I think conditions for people to prosper are not God-given, Devon. They are created. And my view is that they are created by government, through macroeconomic policy that will force us as business, to do what we need to do. Because I think if these things are left to the goodwill of those that are in charge, then it can actually never happen. But I think you may know also, Kevin, that when we spoke to the Job Summit issue last year, we spoke a lot about the pay gap disparities. When we said as business, we're actually starting to look at this to see how we can actually address the scourge.
Okay, just very quickly before I let you go, you are willing to talk about some funding structure, at least talk with some of the campaigners?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll leave it there. Busisiwe, thanks very much indeed for coming in. Busisiwe Mavuso, the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa. I want to take you very quickly to just check in on the markets at the moment. When we look at it, the JSE opening in positive territory, in line with Asian markets. This after the US President Donald Trump said he would prefer to complete a deal with China. So locally, the banks and retailers not doing too shabby indeed. Let's bring up that Rand graphic very quickly, see where the currency is at. Rand is stronger against major global currencies this morning. Why is that? The US or the European Central Bank introducing a stimulus package, emerging market currencies like that. The Rand benefiting as well, 14.55 against the US dollar, 16.16 to the euro, and to a British pound, 18 Rand 13 cents. All right, that's where we leave the markets for now. Michelle, that's